Well, good morning, or good afternoon to some, I guess. I want to thank everyone for taking the time today to attend our BC chapter event. We're in a virtual environment. We welcome those of you not only attending from BC, but from Southern California, Western Canada, New York, Ontario, and other geographies within our network. It's great to see so many people from various geographies joining us today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jason C., and I am the Executive Director for Maple Business Council here in BC, working with my colleagues, Stephen Armstrong and Robert Kelly, to help promote activities and promote the brand of Maple Business Council here in this province. So yeah, Rob, if you can just move forward one slide there. Yeah. So here's our plan for today. We'll have some virtual networking in the morning, so hopefully you had a chance to reacquaint yourselves with some folks and meet some new people. And we'll have a chance also to do some networking after our presentation at 12:15 as well. So I'll give a quick update on Maple, and then we'll proceed with our featured presentations from Brookfield. Go to the next slide there. So just a couple of points on housekeeping. Best to keep phones and your laptop on mute for the best audio experience. We're also recording today's event, and a copy will be made available in future communication. And of course, questions are always welcome. Please enter in the Q&A box, and we'll try to get to as many as possible. So our community is growing. So just give you a sense of what our members are made of and what sectors they're from. We're actually industry agnostic, and we have a broad coverage in terms of different sectors. So a good chance to get out of your swim lanes and learn about other businesses doing cross-border trade. So currently we have about 21 sectors represented. About 80% of our members are directors or at the more senior levels of their organizations. Next slide. And in terms of, as I spoke to earlier, we're blessed today to have attendees from various geographies, and the breadth of our membership base continues to broaden. Right now we have 18 Canadian and US markets represented, and we look to continue to build our presence from a broader geographic base as we move forward as well. So in terms of our recent events, feels like a long time ago since we did our last in-person event. It was a year ago in March when we did our last in-person event with Air Canada as our speaker, hosted by Fasken. So that was in March, and then as we sort of transitioned to a more virtual environment and trying to just cope through this period of COVID and social distancing, we were able to have two events hosted in our BC chapter. One in the summer featuring a members mixer, and featuring Senator Yuan Pao Wu, who gave us a couple of words of wisdom to our audience, and opportunity to discuss with him future opportunities for Canadian US trade. And then in the fall, we had incoming US Consul General Brent Hart joined us as a speaker, and also engaged with Q&A with our audience as well. Next slide. And just to welcome a couple of our new BC Maple members, Alina Poliski, who I believe is here today from Art One Translations. Marko Dukovic, also from Global Container Terminals, joined us. Next slide. And then actually just announced within the last couple of days, our newest BC member is Intervistas Consulting. And Intervistas Consulting is sort of near and dear to my heart. During the day, I work for the Vancouver Airport. And Intervista was actually the YVR marketing department, which spun out of YVR some 30 years ago. So they specialize basically in aviation, airport marketing, also work with airlines and the tourism sector as well, but also getting more and more involved in both the logistics space as well as smart technologies and innovation. And so they're represented today by Bill Jones, who will be joining us a little bit later. And also some other members joining us from the national level. Turbo Images, which is a company based in Quebec. They do wrapping for buses and trucks. And then also the Quebec government, also very involved with us as well, both at the provincial side as well as from the investment attraction side, Investment Quebec. And so we also involve ourselves in cross-border storytelling as well. And so here's some examples with regards to some local members providing their insights. So following our event with the Consul General, he was kind enough to provide the transcript of that interview in one of our Momentum publications in the fall. And then also we had one of our local members, PowerShifter, provide some insight following their presentation about Internet of Things and how that is disrupting the healthcare space. We recently had our 49th Momentum newsletter featuring BDC and Long Beach Economic Development. And coming up in April is our 50th newsletter. And hopefully there will be featuring World Trade Center Vancouver and a Q&A with their Executive Director, Austin Nairn. So our community continues to grow. One of the things that we're trying to get more and more involved in, and I think it's a key part of our brand, is diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we've hosted a bunch of different activities in the past, and we'll be doing some more activities moving forward in the future. Of particular interest to our chapter here was a conversation we had with the local company and member, Hemlock and Harling. So very much thanks to Lorraine Duclos, who's here joining us today. We had a chance to talk to Doug Climie and their team over at Hemlock and Harling, who really been leaders in the DEI space locally. And we were able to communicate that to the US consulate in Vancouver, who is also very interested and involved and want to get more proactive in the DEI space. So because it is part of our branding, we're also trying to speak out where appropriate against the periods of social injustice. So you see this example here, our thoughts on Twitter in regards to some instances now occurring in the Asian American community. So next slide. Yeah. So one of the other things that we're also spearheading a little bit, both in this chapter as well as throughout our network, is a program that was introduced to us by Christian Hansen at Industry Canada, a federal government initiative called the 50-30 Challenge. And basically it is an aspiration to have 50-50 gender equality and 30% representation from underrepresented groups. And so Maple was actually one of the lead participants, but now, as I just looked this morning, they have now 1,100 participating organizations. So there's no cost to be involved in this. So that's maybe something your organizations may be interested in getting involved with as well. One of the other things we just recently introduced over the last quarter was an online networking platform called Mighty Networks, which you can access either via the website or via their app on your smartphone. It just provides an opportunity for further networking in a virtual setting where you can pose questions, just get thoughts from different members, or just meet new members in a environment that is actually exclusive to our membership. So if you're not signed up, please take an opportunity to check that out. Great to get more conversation, interaction on that space as well. So just to put in your calendars, we do have this updated on our website, both for Maple and our community events. But just a couple things coming up in the next couple of months. Our San Diego online reception is coming up on May 5th, followed very shortly by LA World Trade Week. We're hoping to have our BC chapter summer mixer sometime in the summer, but we're still working on finalizing those dates. As we get into early June, World Trade Center LA will be announcing their new FDI report. And then we'll also be having our SoCal online event on June 3rd as well. And then as we move into the fall, we're hoping to have another BC chapter event, either virtually or potentially even in person. And then Select LA Investment Summit, something to put on your calendars as well for October 20th and 21st. So again, a lot of these events are now live and more information can be made available on our website. So just a shout out to become, if you're not already, to be part of Maple Business Council, or if you're part of our council already, perhaps you know of other colleagues or companies that may be interested in getting involved in our community. I think we cover BC, Canada and US economic ties very differently than any other community. I think it brings a unique perspective, and we can bring that Canada-US executive network to you. We network through various means, actually and virtually, on different content platforms. It allows you to stay on top of the news in terms of cross-border trade. Over the time, we've been able to develop various partnerships with the Consul Generals of Canada, the U.S. Commercial Service, the U.S. Consulate, and economic development agencies such as World Trade Center LA, City of Long Beach, and locally World Trade Center Vancouver, and the Greater Irvine Chamber. So for more information, feel free to contact myself at the email below, through our website, or through any of my colleagues here today. And also feel free to follow us on social media. We're active on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook, as well as our Mighty Networks platform as well. So at this point, it's my great pleasure today to announce our featured guest from Brookfield Properties. Great, thanks. From Brookfield Properties, David Foley, as well as co-presenters Sue Vandeman, Leasing Director, and Mariah Robinson, Events Director. David is currently the Senior Vice President of Operations at California Market Center. In addition to his responsibilities at CMC, he also manages operations for Brookfield's Northern California and Washington assets. He holds leadership positions with BOMA California, BOMA Greater Los Angeles, and the LA Fashion BID. Prior to joining Brookfield, David was the Director of Global Real Estate Operations for Wellington Management, where he led real estate operations for 15 offices in 6 countries. David currently resides in Los Angeles, California. Mariah Robinson is the Events Director at California Market Center, where she manages all marketing and event efforts for CMC, including the well-known LA Fashion Market, which occurs 5 times per year. Prior to joining CMC in 2018, Mariah held marketing and events roles with Saks Fifth Avenue, Premier Events, and Merlin Entertainment. Sue Bandeman is the Leasing Director at California Market Center. Sue's relationships with key fashion brands and tenants have enabled her to complete a multitude of complex transactions, including over 100 leases for CMC and attracting new signature brands such as Paige Denim, DL 1961, and Fila to the property. He was formerly with Jones Lang LaSalle, Hertz Investment Group, and Jameson Surfaces prior to joining Brookfield Properties in 2017. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to you, Dave, and your team.
Thank you so much, Jason. I think the hardest part of these presentations is the bio outline that you just went through, so thank you for that. Hello, everyone. My name is Dave Foley, and I am with Brookfield Properties. I am joined today, as Jason mentioned, by Sue Bandeman and Mariah Robinson. Sue will be going over the leasing aspect of our project, and Mariah will be giving us an overview of our event business at California Market Center. Next. So what I thought I would do today is start with a very high-level overview of Brookfield Properties from a global perspective, moving down to Los Angeles specifically. And then the project that we're really here to talk about today is California Market Center. But at a high level, Brookfield is a global alternative asset manager with an integrated global real estate service platform that's across many sectors. And today we're going to focus on the commercial office sector. We have over 540 billion in assets under management, 600 properties globally, 30 projects under construction, one of which is California Market Center that we will talk about today, and 170 premier retail destinations. Next. So in the US, we have hubs from New York to Los Angeles, coast to coast, Denver, Houston. You can see our spread across the US. We've been in the US since the early 80s, so quite a varied and diversified portfolio in the United States. Next. Specifically looking at Los Angeles here to the left, we really dot the majority of the premier skyscrapers in Los Angeles skyline. We have 7 commercial office towers, and we are the #1 landlord for commercial office space in downtown Los Angeles. And when you combine the fact that we recently became also #1 in multifamily residential in downtown Los Angeles, combined with hospitality, logistics, and retail, we have 47 properties in DTLA. So we are big believers in Los Angeles. Wanted to make a note that we have 8 properties in Calgary and 14 in Toronto. So we are a Canadian-based firm. We're big believers in Maple. We thank them for the opportunity to give us, or that they've provided us today for this presentation. Cross-border collaboration, we're a big proponent of that naturally. We live Canada, US, and globally, so trade is of utmost importance. Next. So specifically, California Market Center, This is a 1.8 million square foot mixed use project. It's a full city block in the Fashion District in downtown Los Angeles. The history behind this project is that in the 1960s, it was developed and housed fashion showroom tenants throughout the entire complex. Most fashion tenant showrooms are about 1,000 to 3,000 square feet. So you can imagine the quantity, hundreds up to 1,000 tenants probably occupied this complex at one point in time. And over the course of many years, the industry has contracted, and this property was about 30% occupied when we acquired it. And our vision was to, it's a 3-building complex. Our vision was to move all of the fashion tenancy into one of the newly renovated buildings, and then renovate the other 2, which is about 1.2 million square feet of office space. And the creative nature of this iconic structure in the Fashion District is really what we believe we can leverage off of on the commercial office side of the equation, attracting creative tenancy like entertainment and others, tech tenants, to downtown Los Angeles into the Fashion District. Next. So just a couple of quick fun facts, 1.8, 1.9 million square feet, rounded up. Floor plates, we're going to talk about in a minute, 100,000 square feet, actually 150,000 square feet if you go across all 3 buildings. Beautiful location, has a great neighborhood surrounding it. That was one of our really high interests in acquiring this property. On the leasing front, everyone's, proposing how great the neighborhoods are, but this neighborhood has been under development from the Bank District in Broadway and Spring Street areas all the way up to our doorfront for the last 10 years. So we have that really unique neighborhood with great restaurants and retail surrounding this property. It's a great employer-based location. Next. So just quick location, CMC is about 7 blocks from the Staples Center to your left in this image, and then about a 10 or 15 minute walk from CMC to the downtown core where the majority of our skyscrapers are. Next. So here's a finished rendering of the complex, and a couple things I wanted to point out. When this project was built in the 60s, it was really a kind of a hardened fortress, if you will. There were no clear, clean sight lines through the complex. And one of the things I wanted to point out here is in this plaza where you see a cafe kiosk and landscaping an open platform area, this is about 20,000 square feet. Prior to us renovating it, it had a 2-story bank office building there. So we've removed that. We've really opened up this and created a great community public center. This will be the largest open space plaza in the Fashion District. And I also want to bring your attention to the middle of the screen between these 2 buildings, A and B. These are the ones being renovated right now for the commercial creative office tenancy. We opened up what was the front entrance that was a closed area. And we've created a pedestrian streetscape that goes all the way through the core of the complex, from 9th Street all the way through to Olympic. And in that center area, if you also look up, it's hard to see, but there's some 2-story open air sky bridges. Those sky bridges they were all encased as well. And you could not see through that location. So we've really created and brought in a feel of Los Angeles to this project. Next. Want to talk a little bit about the floor plates. Your upper right is Building B, about 40,000 square feet. The lower right is Building A, another 60,000 square feet. So these are the 2 buildings that are currently under construction and that will be completed in September. They are both vacant, and what's so unique about these floor plates is we are only one of 2 projects in Los Angeles that has 100,000 square foot floor plates available. But when you combine that with the fact that these 2 buildings are also empty, and if you are a tenant looking to plant your flag in downtown Los Angeles, you can come in and actually occupy a full building, one or the other. You can go laterally or vertically, either way that you want. So it has tremendous flexibility. as well as the scale of 100,000 square feet on the floor plan. Next. So here's one of the open air sky bridges that I was talking about earlier that looks back into the atrium at the grand staircase. That grand staircase leads up. That's the grand entrance to the fashion building that has already been renovated and occupied. And the opposite view of this sky bridge is to downtown Los Angeles and the skyline. Next. So this rendering is very similar to the one that we looked at earlier, but I wanted to bring your attention to the 13th floor, the uppermost floor, and you'll notice that the window line has been removed. And one of the things that we've done is created a very unique 5,000 square foot sky bridge in each of these buildings on that floor. And so this allows employers to have this really great outdoor space, very much Los Angeles and a desired requirement today for our new tenancy coming in, especially entertainment and tech. You know, imagine your employees working in a space and then be able to open up the doors to an outdoor sky deck and a lounge area that they can do some work on out there and have some great meeting space in collaboration with other employees. Really unique opportunity, and every floor has that opportunity for tenants to continue to open up additional floors in that same manner. Next. This is the tenant amenity deck up on the roof. It's about 5,000 square feet. That skyline that you see is exactly the way it looks. It's an amazing view. You know, most of my career, if not all of my career, I've been working in the downtown sector looking out from the core. This is the first time I've been in a project that is actually looking back inward to the city. It's an amazing view. This amenity deck will be available to all of our tenants. We will also utilize it for VIP events, combined events with the plaza downstairs, that great open air plaza. And it's just really a fantastic amenity for our tenants. Next. So now we're going to show you a video for California Market Center, which will be followed by Sue Bonabon on the leasing front.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to meet you virtually, and I am Sue Bonabon with Brookfield Properties. Today, I'd like to share our leasing efforts on the Creative Office building, which are Building A and Building B. These two buildings are dedicated for Creative Office tenants. Think of like tech company, like Google, entertainment companies, music studio, and corporate office space for large fashion entity. We have had several tours with prominent companies and now in negotiation with two large anchor tenants. Each of the clients is looking to occupy around 150,000 square feet for occupancy in Q1 of 2022. As Dave has mentioned that, you know, you can take a whole floor, 100,000 square feet, and you can stack it up along with another half a floor above that, or you can come in and take 3 floors, and that will give you about 150,000 square feet. We are located in the heart of the downtown fashion district and really prime location for West Coast headquarters for many companies. Some of the key companies that I would like to share that are located close by, you can see like Warner Brother Music Studio are located pretty close to us. TJ Maxx has an office a few blocks from CMC, and Revolve, which is a key online retailer in the US here, is located across the street from the building. Next. Building C, as you could see here from the picture, it's dedicated strictly just for fashion. It is a wholesale fashion center. It's approximately 600,000 square feet, dedicated for fashion companies. We opened this building last year in January in 2020 and moved in over 100 showrooms. Gensler is an architect who assists us with the design of this property here. They create state-of-the-art showroom with open ceiling floor plan, upgrade lighting, polished cement floor. We also the home of Ross Buying Office. Next. You could see here that the building is curated by brands, and we curate the floor by merchandise. So you have contemporary on 2, women's on 4. That's where you find a lot of Canadian brands. We have probably about 20 Canadian brands on site right now. In addition to Ross Regional Buying Office in the building, we also the home of Donegal Directed West. What they do is that they represent stores like Nordstrom, Saks, Neiman's. And when stores come in, they kind of help them navigate and find different products in the building. As I mentioned earlier, we do have about 20 Canadian brands represented at CMC out of the 90 international brands that we house. Next. What you see here is just an example of the key showroom we have at CMC. This is Page Denim, high-profile denim brand. They set up their corporate headquarter with us here, and you can see beautiful showroom with custom fixtures, nice open office space. Next. This is also another photo of Page showroom. I think what they're creating here is the concept of what their retail store looks like. And when buyers come in, they can look at the concept here and see what they can duplicate and how they can merchandise and brand their products within their store. Next. Next showroom is Alternative Apparel, which is represented in season after season showroom. You can see very clean, all white. So now the products really stand out with those kind of white walls. Next. Willow is another brand that we brought in, LA-based young contemporary brand. They moved into the building in January of last year. Next. Now, what I would like to do is introduce my associate, Marai, who is overseeing events and markets at CMC, and she will be happy to share with you all the exciting events that we have in plan for 2021. Go ahead, Marai.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me today, Maple. So excited to share with you our events and marketing program here at the California Market Center. If you could go into the next slide. So one of the very unique things about the event programs that we do here at the CMC is our events and marketing programs are all essentially support programs for our MART tenancy. The MART tenancy being the wholesale showrooms that Sue and Dave were mentioning. So most notably, we produce the LA Fashion Market Week, along with the other wholesale buildings that are in the neighborhood here. So we've got a few key wholesale showrooms across the street who also participate in LA Fashion Market Week. Because of our size and scale, buyers across the US really look at the CMC as the hub for wholesale in the fashion district because, as Dave mentioned, we do take up an entire city block, so it's very difficult to miss us. But just to give you a high-level overview of market weeks, so generally these are buying periods that correspond with a buyer schedule for a retailer. So we're inviting buyers across the US into the West Coast and primarily into Los Angeles to within a week period. For LA Market Weeks and for LA Kids Market Weeks, we produce this event 5 times a year. And then secondarily, we also produce a couple other market weeks, which is Majors Market and LA Men's Market. LA Majors Market really focuses, as it sounds in the name, it focuses on major retailers. So your TJ Maxx, Marshalls, Target, that's the primary focus there. And a lot of the key brands are young contemporary, whereas our LA Market Week and our Kids Market is primarily men's and women's apparel and then kids apparel, and it extends off of footwear, accessories, and home goods. So within those fashion markets, we also produce self-produced trade shows. So we have a team on site that is self-producing trade shows really from concept to completion. We do everything from the very initial sales. So we're contacting hundreds to thousands of brands at many times, booking them into an exhibitor space, and then we handle all of the key marketing, the production, and the operation of these events. So the reason why we we self-produce our own trade shows is really to broaden the brand presence here in the building and also in Los Angeles, because the more brands that are represented at these LA Market Weeks, the more buyers that you're actually going to get, because buyers like to work efficiently, just as we all do. So if you're giving them a really robust and key brand offering, then they're more likely to come to LA versus some of our competitors. Our competitors being major hubs are in Atlanta and then in Dallas. So we're always trying to do our best to pull market share over to LA and entice them with our sunny weather. In addition to some of these trade shows, so the apparel trade shows that we produce are Label Array and Majors Market. In addition to that, we also have spent 25 years now running a textile show called LA Textile. It is still currently the largest textile show on the West Coast. And just to give you guys a little idea about our exhibitor representation and our attendee representation for that show, it varies from some of our apparel trade shows. So for textile, our exhibitors actually represent 70% international groups. We have 70% of the exhibitors are flying in to come and exhibit at the show, and only about 30% are domestic. And then our attendee numbers for that show is actually the exact opposite. So we get 70% attendees of that show are US based. A lot of that US based is also West Coast based and in California. One thing that's unique about us for the textile market is that we do have the entertainment industry here. So we're getting costume designers that are attending that show in addition to regular fashion designers, which is primarily who's attending textile trade shows. So then the third kind of pillar of what we do here that we launched this last year is CMC Uploaded. And this is our virtual platform. So, post-pandemic, we knew that we needed to pivot rather quickly in order to keep our audience engaged. We've spent a lot of marketing efforts, a lot of energy into engaging our community and have thousands of buyers in our database. So, as soon as the pandemic hit, what we were seeing across the board is there was a lot of issues on the manufacturing side because of manufacturing shutdowns, samples not being able to leave the country. So there was a lot of hurdles that showrooms were facing, that brands were facing, and we wanted to step in and give them a platform to engage during this process. And that's exactly what we did. So we've been producing a virtual platform called CMC Uploaded since August of 2020, which has really exceeded our expectations. Like many other companies who've been diving into virtual, we've been able to see a much broader attendee base from across the world that we didn't necessarily get before. So for example, we just wrapped LA Textile CMC Uploaded in March, earlier this month. And from that show, like I said, domestically, we're seeing a lot of the West Coast, West Coast, Pacific Northwest states that are attending. This time around, we actually saw attendees from 40 states in the US, which is pretty unprecedented. And then in addition to that, we saw representation from 13 countries, which is a little more than normal, but still, incredible numbers. We can head to the next slide. So just two examples of our trade shows. We've got Label Array on the left, which takes place during LA Fashion Market, and we have LA Textile on the right. The photo that I chose for LA Textile is really just to show you that we don't just produce trade shows and set up exhibit booths. We actually produce tons of activation, art installations, and then conferences that go on simultaneously with the event. We create a big, big experience. So this is an example of a partnership and a conference that we produced called The Future of Fashion, and we produced this in conjunction with the Fashion Revolution, which is a huge advocate for sustainability in the fashion industry. And we also produce this with PETA. And in this conversation, we were talking a lot about alternatives, vegan alternatives in the fashion space. Next slide. So this is an example of one of our trade shows for Label Array. As you can see, this is our typical trade show setup, and these women are having a great time doing business. Next. This is an example from LA Textile, and this is an activation that we did. And again, I chose this slide just to show you that it goes way beyond textiles and fashion. In this event, we had a nail bar, and what was so special is we actually partnered with a textile manufacturer out of Japan, and we took their textile designs, which are unique to them, and had a manufacturer who does stick-on nails print them on nails, and then we offered custom manicures on site. So a very unique experience, something that would be a once in a lifetime offering. You're not going to get that anywhere, that you could only get at our event in partnership with this great textile brand. Next. This is an example of one of our activations. Our show, LA Textile, really for the past 3 seasons have been very focused on sustainability efforts, and this is in conjunction with that. So, we partnered with the New Denim Project, and we did an installation to show the process of how you upcycle denim. Next. This is from our LA Majors Market. Next. We also light up during fashion markets every space that we can within the building. So in this space here, we just had a musician in the lobby, but at every fashion market, we've got coffee bars on site. We have food stations, different activation sites. We've got happy hours. We've got live music. So one of the really key reasons why we really light up the space is we want to keep buyers coming back and having a great experience. So we want to keep them on property. We want to be able to get them here, to feed them here, to keep them here for a drink, whatever we can do just so that they don't exit the building. That's that's what we do. Next. So if that's, not enough, one of the other big pieces of our business, which I actually love, is, during off-peak periods where we're not producing fashion markets or trade shows, we have an empty venue space. So we utilize those periods to work with third-party event producers and bring their events on site to the California Market Center. And, we do this, of course, because it generates revenue, additional revenue for us outside of our trade shows. But more importantly, it actually generates a huge presence and especially with the local community to come down into the fashion district. The fashion district, even right now is pretty heavily business to business. So you don't see a lot of traffic on the weekends, but that is changing rapidly with everything that Dave and Sue had mentioned. I personally came to the fashion district about 13 years ago, and to see the district then and now, it is truly going through a renaissance. And I, fully believe that, even what we're seeing right now and in the future, we'll see a lot of traction from locals that are coming to the fashion district as a destination because of the key restaurants and retail that is coming on down here. But for third-party events, we have some amazing events that have been on site with us for years. Unique LA is an example of that. They produce a market, which is a direct-to-consumer shopping event, and it is comprised of all locally made goods and artisan makers. What's incredible about that event is it's a 2-day event, and it sees nearly 6,000 people over a 2-day period. So just imagine, 3,000 people a day coming on property that are in the area, that are able to shop on site, and then they are stimulating and boosting the commerce outside of us, to the retailers and to the restaurants. Some other key events that we have on site are Indie Beauty, Biz Bash Live, Small Business Expo, the Makeup Show, and there's so many more. We do tons of conferences, tons of smaller events. So that's really just those key ones that I mentioned are just the tip of the iceberg. Outside of that, we also produce community events, and that's very important to us, and it's also important to Brookfield. So not last year, but in 2019, that entire year, we actually launched a weekly farmers market. So every single week on Wednesdays, we had a pop-up farmers market in our plaza that serviced our fashion district community. Absolutely amazing feedback. Everyone loved it. The only reason why we had to shut it down is because the buildings went under renovation. But as soon as we're back up again this fall, we plan on bringing the the farmers market back up. And then we also post, our installations and do pop-ups to stimulate the community. Next. So with that, I would just like to open it up for question and answer with Sue and I.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mariah, Sue, and Dave. Really impressive, not just from a physical perspective. I mean, the amenity deck looks really cool as you're showing there with a great view of LA. But I think it's also really impressive both as a place for community and, as you mentioned, sort of the different experiences as well, and having things like the farmers market and other things where you can sort of interact not only with other tenants but others in the community as well. So yeah, as there's any other questions, please feel free to populate that in the Q&A tab. So I think Brian Sue is available to answer questions. I think Dave might be having to leave. He's currently in the Bay Area right now and has a flight to catch back to Southern California. So perhaps Mariah and Sue can answer some of the questions. As we're perhaps waiting for some questions, perhaps I had one that I can ask one of you is, in terms of the redevelopment of CMC, how challenging was that, obviously during COVID, and then sort of what do you see sort of challenges as we are sort of transitioning from COVID back to sort of a more regular business type setting?
Yeah, thank you, Jason. I would say that the challenging part for us was when, as you could see, the building consists of 3 building, A, B, and C. So the first phase for us is that we had to move approximately 50 tenants out of the building C into building A and B at the same time, and then we can start construction of C, which C was really open in January 2020. So once we relocate those tenants into A and B, we further had to compress the building and move those tenants to only maybe about 4 floors to begin renovation of A and B. So I think that was a challenging part. The good news on the COVID side, I think our construction has been running on schedule. Occupancy right now is approximately 25% in the property. And we do see that by summer and fall, I would say by fall, we probably could reach to 75%. And I think by the end of the year, we anticipate going to 100%.
Great. And I think we might be talking about this maybe before the event a little bit, but in terms of the different buildings, are you able to say what tenants you might have there currently, and if there may be any tenants who are from Canada or from Vancouver that you may be able to disclose?
Of course, yes. We are really happy to house Herschel Kids in the building. That's really high profile. We love the brands based in Vancouver. We also have Parkland Bag in the building, which is also women's and kids brand at the property here. On top of that, we house approximately 20 Canadian brands. I would say Frank Lyman is a key better women's product that we see in the property here from Montreal. On top of that, I think we have Claire de Jourdan from Montreal. So quite a lot of Montreal brands, along with a lot of kids brands as well at the property here. On top of that, we also reach out to some other clients like Parasuco, some Canadian brands that we would love to see. And of course, Lululemon, we would love to see their presence in the building on the retail side of that. The property itself would also have about 150,000 square feet of retail space. So we're also looking for key retail brands to anchor our retail sector as well.
Great. So it looks like we got a couple of questions coming in, and I'll try to be sensitive in terms of allowing some time to network afterwards as well. But one question was, what factors does Brookfield consider in determining the potential for revitalization or redevelopment of its assets in its retail office portfolio? I'm not sure if you can see that question in the Q&A there. So when you're looking at revitalizing or redevelopment of assets, I guess what key factors are you sort of considering?
I think location, it is important. For example, if you look at the project itself here, it's almost 2 million square feet. We located in the heart of downtown Fashion District. And if you look at revitalizing this property here, not only it would change the whole landscape of the whole complex itself, our surrounding buildings. I think you see like downtown LA is changing drastically. So a lot of high profile hotels coming in, like Ace Hotel, Hoxton, DTLA proper. You see Apple opening up a store 2 blocks from us, and quite a lot of retailers. We feel that it's a landmark, and I think not only will help to shape the landscape of the whole district here, it is also changing the downtown community. And not only we feel like our neighbors will also be changing the landscape, as well.
Great. So we're at 12:17 now. So thanks very much, Sue, Mariah, and Dave, providing some great insight to a remarkable property, the CMC. I think if you have any other questions, I think you'll be around for the networking session. So perhaps if you had any more detailed questions, you can talk to Mariah or Sue directly. But that really sort of concludes our formal session for today. So just a few closing words from my side. Fortunately, we've been really fortunate at Maple Business Council that despite COVID, we've been able to continue our events and actually grow our chapters as well, both here in BC and then now in New York with John leading that chapter as well. We're always looking for new members to join our community. So if this is of interest to you or other companies, feel free to contact myself or my colleagues for further information. And of course, in the meantime, do follow us on our social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, or in fact, Mighty Networks. So finally, when we did our last in-person event in March, this probably was the last in-person event in Vancouver, which was a year ago, which feels like many years ago. But while we locally have some challenges to work through in the near term, it looks like as we flip the calendar to April, there's some hope springs eternal, I guess. So like tomorrow, April 1st, opening day for baseball, and there's actually going to be fans in the stands. And then later in the month, on April 30th, Disneyland actually opens up as well. So thanks to our frontline workers, hope is just around the corner. So hopefully we look forward to seeing everyone at an actual presence soon. Thanks everyone for joining us today. We'll open it up to networking to the bottom of the hour, and we look forward to seeing everyone again at our next event soon.
Thank you, Jason, for having us.
Thanks again, Sue, Mariah, and Dave.